Good morning, everybody. My name is Sean Shapiro, and I'm a police constable with the Toronto Police Service here at Traffic Services in the Safety Programs Unit. You're tuned in watching, well, it's a show called Ask a Traffic Cop because I'm a traffic cop and you get to ask us questions. We have a live chat feature, and everything that we do is going to be on screen in front of you. And I'm being told to invert TikTok, so I'm doing that. And I know I have a weird filter. I'm also simulcasting on VoiceOver Cop, my TikTok channel, and you're welcome to join there if you're not already there. Today I have a guest. It's Sgt Ron Gardner. He is a member of the Traffic Services Motor Squad. He's one of the supervisors in the team, and we're going to talk about all things Motor Squad. So we're talking about motorcycle safety, what it takes to be in part of the unit, and so on. But you know what? Before we do that, I want to talk about something that's important. It's the Vision Zero Enforcement Team. Vision Zero Enforcement Team is a team of dedicated officers that go out and do enforcement throughout the city, and they focus on different divisions every day. And they're looking for the Big Four. Big Four are speeding, aggressive driving, distracted driving, and of course impaired driving. That's what they're looking for. Those are the behaviors that drivers choose to engage in that lead to serious injury and death on our roadways. And of course, our goal with Vision Zero is to reduce those serious injuries and deaths to zero. We know that minor collisions are going to happen, but the ones that lead to the serious injury and death are unacceptable and totally preventable. So today, the Vision Zero Enforcement Team will be in 52 Division and 33 Division. And if you don't want to meet them in person, follow the rules of the road, and you will probably not have any cause to meet them. So, Sarge, good morning. Thanks for joining us. It's a first time on the show.
Yes, it is. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning. Yeah, it's nice to have you. We've been talking about getting you here for a while now because motorcycling is near and dear to my heart. I'm a former member of the Motor Squad, as you know, and for those who are watching may not know, it's the best place to work in the Toronto Police, as far as I'm concerned. And,
definitely is.
Where can you go to get paid to ride a Harley Davidson and go and make the streets of Toronto safer? I mean, there couldn't be a better combination of events.
Yep, absolutely. Get paid to ride around on someone else's motorcycle all day.
And they pay for the gas and the insurance. Yeah, it's a good deal. So we talk about what for those who are viewing who don't know. Well, actually, sorry, one last thing before we get into that. We have a live chat. So if you do have questions for us and you're watching on, well, even if you're watching on the good old TikTok, if you have questions for myself or for Sergeant Gardner, feel free to drop them in the box. I'm going to hit this button so the chat overlay is visible, and you can drop them in. Everyone will see them. And if you're in the chat on TikTok, we will also try and do the same. So let's see here. Okay. And here we go. So what does the Motor Squad do? What's the primary focus, so we can let everybody know?
Well, the Motor Squad actually does quite a bit in terms of the primary focus. When there's nothing happening, like a special event or dignitary in the city, that sort of thing, we're an enforcement unit. Our mandate is exactly what Vision Zero's mandate is, and the Big Four is what our guys are out there looking for each day. However, our responsibility extends way beyond that when it comes to special events. We've all seen when a dignitary arrives, there's usually a police escort, and 90% of the time there's a Motor Squad officer at the front of it, or taking care of the entire escort duties. So there's special training that goes with that. And as you talked about motorcycle safety, that is a huge concern for us in the motor unit. So we will make sure that every officer, it's not just a matter of being a licensed motorcycle rider. They need to pass, as you're aware, the various courses before attaining the levels required to allow them.
For me, I had a really interesting sort of lead up into becoming a member of the unit. I started off as an auxiliary officer back in 2000 with Toronto Police, and I was recruited into traffic services because I had a motorcycle license. And back then, it was very rare to have an auxiliary member who rode a motorcycle. But I got a chance to volunteer 40 hours of my life to take a course with police officers to get a basic operator's course. Fast forward to when I became a police officer, I made it down to traffic services, and I was invited to come up and work in the office. But I had to do something called, I think they called it test your metal, or so you think you can ride.
Well, you think you can ride.
There you go.
Yeah.
Test Your Metal is the Harley dealer test drives. So You Think You Can Ride is the test that was put on by the Motor Squad. And I got to come out and go through I guess the motions of some of the blown out. I say blown out. It means an expanded course of a rodeo course that was made easier for an uninitiated rider to go and show. Could you really have the ability to do what you need to do and to take direction? So they worked with us for a little bit, and then we got a chance to go and actually test. And I was fortunate enough to get past that and be invited to come back and take the course and join the unit. But that was just for being able to do point-to-point riding, very, very basic, still a very high bar for what you have to be able to do.
The level of instruction is phenomenal. Our instructors, some of which have been on your show before, they do an excellent job of not just teaching and instructing the newer and experienced riders, but they're also not afraid to tell someone that they're not going to make it. So when we had those So You Think You Can Ride programs, there are officers that have been riding for literally decades that can't get through the cone patterns. Those cone patterns are, like you say, blown out. They're bigger than what is required to qualify, but they're still a challenge. And if you haven't done them before, it's certainly a wake-up call.
I've got some video of this. I'm going to go onto our YouTube channel. So while we're talking about other stuff, I'll also pull up and be able to share with everybody on YouTube what some of these patterns look like, because it is not a walk in the park. There are people, we heard some grown officers who get anxiety about having to requalify. And talking about requalifying, every single year that you're a member, you must be able to perform your duties as a motorcycle operator to the same level as you did the previous year to maintain your status in the office.
That's right. And currently there are 3 levels. So your level 3 riders are the ones that do the escorts. And again, they're going to have the most advanced training. So their annual requal every year is at that level. Just as you mentioned, it's not just a matter of squeaking by the basics. You've got to be able to do it every single year.
And we have in the past had officers who didn't meet it and they had to find somewhere else to work.
Yeah, they either downgraded the level they were at, or they simply didn't qualify. And as you say, they're back to wherever they can find a spot.
From whence you came. Yeah, and there's lots of work to do. Like, we have so many different things that we do within the traffic unit. This is traffic services, and we're the citywide unit that responds to traffic-related events in the city. So whether it be collisions, fatalities, whether it's vehicular, or I guess you could still say vehicular when it comes to trains. We even investigate boat incidents at times, because we have reconstruction unit. We have all sorts of specialists in this building, all under the umbrella of traffic. And so Motor Squad is just one of those specialties. Let me see if I can. I'm sure I'm going to find this in any second now. And it's one of those videos that if you ride, I think you'll really appreciate just how much it goes into this. The
other thing to note about these cone patterns is they're not just for fun. There are challenges and rodeos and competitions, but it's not just for fun. Each one of these patterns is designed specifically to replicate a situation that someone may face on the road. So when we talk about a lot of training that we deal with in policing, we talk about muscle memory and the things that we're going to do automatically. So what we're teaching the riders to do here is to react automatically to a situation they may have suddenly faced. So again, looking at the cone pattern, some of them, they are fun to get through. They are a personal challenge for the rider, but they're building the necessary experience so that when it confronts the rider in an emergency on the road, they're already prepared to deal with it.
Here, I found one. Okay, here I can share this one. Here we go. Sharing. This is just a U-turn. I don't know if it's going to have more than that, but this is just a U-turn. That's an 18 by 18 box. And obviously you can't make contact with any of the cones. And you have to be able to perform it clean in both directions. Yeah. One direction is easy, at least easier, for everyone will have their preferred direction, and that's it. Once you hit that direction, suddenly the opposite can be much more challenging.
And definitely in any one of those exercises, you're not allowed to touch a cone. If you touch the cone, you're unsuccessful. So, and that motorcycle is about 1,000 pounds, about 1,100 pounds, I think, actually, with all the equipment loaded up.
I'm trying to see around my microphone. It's not cooperating with me. It's funny how looking through a microphone is difficult. or challenging anyway. Let's see. Okay, I've got one more. I think this is here. Now, so you want to join the motor squad. You start off by your test your skills, and then you take the first course. How long is that first course?
The first course is 3 weeks. So it's 3 weeks, Monday to Friday. One of those days is actually at night, because obviously night riding is important. When you look into some of the factors involved too, it's not just the advanced riding of the motorcycle, it's performing the job functions on the motorcycle, making vehicle stops, using the emergency equipment. Just something as simple as putting the lights on in a night environment is a completely different environment because of how bright they are and how you're working around that vehicle. So over those 3 weeks, it's a very intense course. They know by the first week if they're already going to be cutting students. It's not something the instructors want to do, but they'll know by the end of that first week if somebody's not going to be able to progress into week 2 because the acceleration, the learning curve is so steep. They just don't have the time to spend with someone as much as they may have the desire to complete it. If it's something they're just having too much trouble with, we can't hold the rest of the course back because it's that intense coming into week 2 and week 3. And as they progress through those courses, things get faster, the cone patterns get tighter, and there's more road riding involved.
The whole concept is to bring someone up to a riding level that they can be safe and perform all these other duties because there's so much going on. And if you're focused on just getting the bike to do what you want it to do, you're not focused on the myriad of other things that you've got to be responsible for. So riding's got to be second nature. And these courses are designed to get you to that level. But like you said earlier, not everyone's going to be able to cut it.
Yeah, and that's actually funny. I just looked at one of the comments here. The person notes that they have an M license and that box gives them anxiety. So we should try and find the other ones. And I actually think they're on here. Once I find one, I think I'll be able to. I'd imagine I can share it, or I can send you the link.
I've got tons of them, and I said to myself, I'm gonna do this in advance, and then I ran out of time, and finding them on YouTube. I'm certainly gonna put the links in the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, please follow us. You will be able to go into the show notes after this video is complete. You'll be able to go in and see direct links. Now, if you're on our TikTok, it's also on our TikTok on the traffic services one. I have a question from Ashton Stein, who's one of our moderators on our regular show, and he's a moderator on my TikTok. He says, "Do officers ever dump a motorcycle?" Yeah, that happens.
Unfortunately, fortunately, a lot of that is in training, and there's a lot of debate about what makes the best police motorcycle. And I can tell you straightforwardly that the Harley Davidson can take a beating. That motorcycle can hit the ground hard and keep going. That doesn't take away from the fact that we don't want them to hit the ground.
True.
And that's why we do all that training in a controlled environment. Thankfully, we don't have a lot of on-duty collisions. They do happen, and like anyone else, it's important to have appropriate safety equipment. So that's something that our unit is very strict upon in terms of wearing the safety equipment, using it properly. Again, if there's a crash in training, it's not that big a deal. We want to avoid injury, we want to avoid the expensive repair, but we don't want it happening on the street. We would prefer it happens in that controlled training environment.
And here we go. I've got another video. This one is fun. Okay, this is the offset cone weave.
While this is playing, I'll answer. Looks like Sylvia has a question there, but can you pick up your own Harley? Yes, you can. There's actually a technique to it, and every rider has to be able to do that. That is part of the course. Yes,
you got to be able to do it, and there's techniques.
Yep.
When you know how to do it, it's a lot easier. It's certainly a lot easier. So this is one of the most basic maneuvers. This offset cone weave.
It can get tricky, though. It's not just a left and right. If you look closely, that's actually a teardrop shape that the rider has to ride in order to make the next turn without touching the cone.
Well, that's it. And if you think it's an articulated vehicle, it's not like a car. It is something that doesn't work the way you'd think logically. You have to take it from a different perspective, and it's where experience and confidence and trusting that that machine is going to be the difference between doing it right and not doing it right. Now, going back for a second to other things we do, because I'm going to try and find another video to share with everybody, but the special details, the IPP kind of escorts. Have you had an opportunity to participate in a lot of these?
Yep. Not so much a lot, I guess, especially during COVID. The duties that we've had to undertake in the last year and a half have been a lot less than what's normally here. But it's a challenging environment. Again, one that carries a lot of risk, and it has to be done safely. The riders are very passionate about being safe. If somebody's making a mistake, everybody's going to know about it because they're going to talk about it.
And that's where we get into debriefs and discussions, and very often we're reviewing video to say, what have we done? What could we do better? And this, now just for anyone else, we talked about very briefly the basic course. There's an advanced course or a second level 2 course, and a level 3 is finally the escort course. And some riders don't make it to that level. There's very often people who are basic operators, point A to point B. They're not doing the next levels because you needed for the longest time to be a full-time member in the motor squad to get this kind of training. So someone would come in as level 1, a year later they'd be eligible to take the level 2, a year later eligible to take the level 3. That generally speaking, that's how it went. And when you finally made it to level 3, you were pretty busy because you were constantly being pulled into these escorts, which would change your start time and your end time, because very often we were doing very, very long days. And it was all based on the movements and needs, and there was some hurry up and wait and travel involved, but very, very interesting.
The shift schedule is often determined by the dignitary's schedule or whoever the important person is. And for instance, just scheduling our officers' working hours, depending on the number of officers needed, the number of people available, was in itself a challenge. And as it still happens, we did a charity event on the weekend where the officers worked. Essentially, nobody was scheduled to work on the Saturday, but they all came in. It's not something that's going to be an overtime detail, so schedules are adjusted in order to allow them to partake in the event. And it was very successful, and again, very safe. That was the Canada 911 ride, where civilian riders actually register to go on this charity ride. So, but in order to ensure they all stay together and stay safe, we take care of the escort.
I'm giving up on the videos. I'm going to post these up later on. I've got links to all of them, but I'm going to give up because I feel bad staring off at a screen trying to find this video. Some great stuff. And if you're interested in knowing the kind of riding that we do, the kind of things that we do, because these videos that I do have are very basic maneuvers. They're not by no means competition level, and we do compete. This weekend or this past weekend was 9/11 ride, a charity event. The previous weekend was a skills competition or skills event to improve riders' abilities and skills, and that's where riders from all over the place come to compete in workshops that really challenge their skills. If you search on YouTube, for instance, police motorcycle rodeo, you will see some tremendous content dealing with the kind of things that police officers are expected to be able to do when they're motor officers.
I just saw another question there that why do most stop so close to a vehicle?
Oh, we lost your audio. Something happened to your audio.
Am I still there? Can you hear me now?
I think you switched on to the computer mic. I think from the something happened. We don't know.
Is it okay now? Can you hear?
We still hear you, but there's a lot of echo compared to what you had. We're still good. We'll keep on rolling.
Okay. Somebody gave me this headset. We'll see how well it works.
Yeah, apparently there's some issues.
In any case, why do motorcyclists stop so close to a vehicle? This is from Jeremy. They're not supposed to. If that were to happen on our training course, the instructors would be having a conversation with that rider. You do need to keep a safe distance. You need to have an exit. Essentially, you want to know what's around your rider at every time, or at every moment. Sorry, you should be able to pick an exit in an emergency if you have to. And if you're too close to a car, you're not going to make it. The other question that I thought was interesting up there is what happens if the sergeant doesn't qualify? Well, then the unit gets a new sergeant. So essentially, thankfully, I haven't heard of that happening, but that is ultimately what's going to happen.
Because safety is the primary concern. Now, I'm not in the motorcycle. I'm not in the motor squad unit at the moment, and my exit was based on a collision. I was in a serious injury, serious collision, and I was injured. I wasn't kicked out per se, but I was no longer able to ride a motorcycle, and I haven't been able to be back on a bike since. And I'm looking forward to the day when I can ride again, because I miss riding. But the deal is that you need to be physically capable of doing the job safely in order to be put into that situation. It's not just something we play around with. It's very serious.
Yeah, it is a very physically demanding course, absolutely.
Yes, and you're also, it's funny, you talk about demanding. It's something that many people don't take into consideration is the heat. You're out for a 10-hour shift on a motorcycle in the sun. There's really not a lot of opportunity to hide from that sun. There's no roof, there's no shade. You're in what you're in. You're wearing body armor. You're carrying all your equipment, and you're working in that environment. So staying hydrated, in order to be able to stay alert. Because if you're dehydrated, very often that does things to your brain, making it want to take a nap.
The engine is air cooled as well. So when you're stuck in traffic, all that engine heat is coming directly on the rider.
Yeah, so it's like traveling with your own personal sauna.
Yeah.
So, to being cognizant of how you feel, being aware of yourself and for safety is something that our riders really have to be aware of.
Yeah. And the next question there, I think I mentioned it before, how heavy are the motorcycles? Approximately 1,100 pounds, I believe, the way they're configured.
Right, because not only do you have the motorcycle, you have additional siren, extra battery, computer, printer. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's in there that takes your base weight of a motorcycle and pumps it up. There's a police radio. There's additional equipment, and on their own they're not terribly heavy. But when you start adding them all together, not to mention the fact that we're carrying our rain gear, possibly a lunch, sufficient amounts of water, carrying a laser for speed measurement, because we do enforcement on those. You start carrying a lot of equipment, and it is beyond that of an average rider for the most part. We've been seeing some collisions lately. We've seen some motorcycle issues where riders are either speeding and responsible for their own collision, or not responsible for the collision, but vehicles have come into contact with them and either resulted in a minor collision, or in some cases we've seen some fatalities. Have you got some tips for riders who want to be safe and want some direction as to how they can go about doing that?
So, as always, speed is a factor in the severity of a collision. If the roadway is set up to be a 60-kilometer-an-hour zone and the rider's doing 90, they've dramatically changed the outcome of any potential collision. Most importantly is be aware of your surroundings. Oftentimes, it is not the rider's fault that the collision occurred. One of the most common collisions involving motorcycles is the person turning left in front of them. Motorcycles are definitely hard to see. Every one of them requires a headlight on at all times, but they're still small objects, and a speeding motorcycle doesn't give that person turning left, it doesn't give them a fair perception of what the rider might actually be doing. So when they may see the motorcycle and they may expect that rider is doing 60 or 70 kilometers an hour, but because they're doing 90 or 100, they're really closing the gap a lot sooner than the person turning would expect. And that is often a cause of serious collisions or serious injury after the collision.
Very often a driver sees that headlight off in the distance and they think it's a car that's farther away, because at a distance two headlights blend into one. So they may gauge the distance of that approaching vehicle incorrectly. And that motorcycle, which may be traveling above the speed limit in some cases, it just in a snap they're on top of you, and everyone is a little confused. The driver wasn't.
Sorry, that does go back to what we were saying earlier about always giving yourself an out and knowing what's around you, that 360 degree, I believe they used to call it a circle of safety. You got to know where everybody is all the time, so that if something happens in front of you, you can execute your plan B to get out of there.
And it goes for whether you're driving a two-wheel or four-wheel vehicle, having that escape route, having that plan, traveling at a speed in such that that is going to give you the opportunity to execute that plan. Because it's great to say, hey, in the event of something bad happening, I'm going to do this, that. Well, if you're going over the speed limit, the likelihood of you pulling that off are slim to none. And then there's other factors you start taking into consideration, pedestrians and other vehicles on the road. So slowing down gives you a lot of time. And you know what? Slowing down and enjoying the ride, or the drive for that matter, is a good plan.
Yeah.
A lot of the stress that people deal with when it comes to safety, or getting to work on time, getting to whatever they're trying to get to, if they just left a little earlier, the stress disappears. Suddenly, they can focus on enjoyment and stress-free living, as opposed to the anxiety that comes with trying to get somewhere on time, pushing the limits, going a little faster. Not necessarily things that do well with trying to be safe.
And one of the good things about the industry, when you talk about pushing the limits, is that there are a lot of places that you can go for those that are into the sport bikes. Go to a track day. They're safe. You're not going to get a car turning left in front of you. It'll give you a lot of opportunity to really ride to your comfort level, push those boundaries, but in a safe environment. You won't get any tickets. Unfortunately, there are crashes there. There's always an ambulance on hand whenever they have a track day. So go to the tracks, go to the areas that are set up to safely handle this, and keep it off the roadways.
Q, one of our moderators, who is a big fan of this because she rides and she takes them to the track. That's the way to do it. If you really want to learn how to ride, and we do a different thing. We're not riding fast. We can go fast, but the skill for us is slow speed maneuverability. How many people know how to take a Harley bagger and go off roading? Well, we do, because it's part of our course. Can you go up a flight of stairs? Yeah, you can do it. Would I suggest everyone try this? Maybe not on your own motorcycle. Not something that for the faint of heart. We do things to motorcycles that really abuse them, and it's different. But a sport bike rider who wants to be able to drag that knee should not be doing that on our roads. Shouldn't have to worry about warming up your tires for that aggressive stuff. But you can take a fast course. You can take these great track courses, learn how to do that in the appropriate environment, where you're going to be doing it safely with appropriate medical attention standing by to help you out if things go sideways.
There's actually, interesting you mentioned the courses, because outside of the sport bike world, there are advanced courses available. I recommend anyone thinking of riding a motorcycle take one of the Canada Safety Council approved courses to get your license. I remember when I did mine in 1987, I think there was only one place to go. Now they're all over the province. Definitely worth taking that course. And for those that have been riding for years, look for an advanced course. I'm not going to promote any particular company, but there's advanced courses available, and they're not racetrack courses. They're road riding courses similar to what we do in our training, but at the civilian level, and not quite as hard on the motorcycle as what we're going to put ours through.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's when it's not your bike, you treat it a little differently. Not because you are trying to abuse it, but because you're willing to do things because it's part of the job. You're expected to do it. These are things you need to know, and you're going to do what you're told it's capable of. If it's your brand new bagger worth $40,000, maybe you won't be doing the maneuvers we do. And our bikes are also configured differently. We ride at a much higher street or ride height for our seats. It's a different machine. Q wants to mention that slow speed maneuvering is crucial for all riders, not just for police riders or basically my original statement was saying that fast riders do fast things. No, she's absolutely right. Motorcycle riding at slow speed is really where all the skill, in my opinion, comes from. To do things at slow speed is great. A buddy of mine and I used to ride with me all the time, and our thing was, how long can we balance our bikes or slow ride?
Well, that is one of the challenges at the Great Lakes competition you referred to earlier. That is one of the challenges, to slow ride. And they have novice up to expert categories for each of their different, events. But the slow ride is a challenging event.
And it's one of those things that when it's being done properly, it looks so easy. And I can tell you, it's anything but easy. It's controlling your entire body and being one with that machine. It's fascinating.
One slip of the clutch or cough of the engine, and you're out.
And just moving your own body. I mean, if you move your placement on the seat for balancing that motorcycle is crucial. It's fascinating. Muscle memory practice from Q. Yeah. It's fascinating stuff. It's a lot of fun, and the professional riding is good at any time. Anyone at any area of their skill level and career as a rider should get training and should do it regularly. There's nothing wrong. It is a perishable skill. You're off your bike for an entire season. You come back and you're expected to ride at the same rate. Well, you're not going to be there. We spend time practicing all year round, and then when we come back from our winter, we get a little warm up. There's an expectation for us to go out and You knock the cobwebs out.
Yeah.
Find your balance, find everything you did, and you don't start off on day one at the end of or the beginning of a new season and ride like you did when you were riding daily. It just doesn't
No,
happen.
absolutely. You got to get back into it.
So
And
there's
even our trainers will schedule a time with every qualified rider to ensure that they can get themselves up to speed before having to enter that qualification. Because again, it's a very rigid program, and if someone is unsuccessful, you don't just get to keep trying and trying and trying. Every attempt is recorded, and I don't remember off the top of my head what the maximum is, but if you're unsuccessful X number of times, then that's it.
Yeah.
That's it for this year anyway. And then in terms of what would happen after that, you may end up having to take another course or be downgraded another level.
Well, there have been people who have gone and after having spent a certain amount of time off the motorcycle have been said, you know what, you're going to do the course all over again. Yes, you rode for years and years and years, but when liability is at stake, when your safety is at stake, it makes much more sense to send you back to basic training than it is to say, we'll just make it go away. We'll work it out. No, we are all about safety here, and we practice what we preach. So I would love to take the course again. That is fun.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong. Don't threaten me with a good time. Go
Unless
ride
it's
motorcycles.
Unless it's raining, because we will do every single day of the course in the rain if we have to. It's rain or shine.
But that goes to driver training of any kind. Rainy day riders, fair weather riders, folks who don't want to drive or ride in the rain don't have that experience when it comes down to it. And if you get caught in the rain and that's now foreign to you, you can't just pull over and park. You need to be able to deal with it.
Absolutely.
So it's one of those things that if you have an opportunity to drive or ride in the rain or drive in the rain as a learner, get out there and do it. Take it easy, but at least experience it. Go into a parking lot.
It's not comfortable, but you'll understand the limitations of not just yourself, but of your equipment. Some of these motorcycles will handle great in the dry. As soon as they start getting a little wet on the tires, they'll start sliding.
And that's where it starts talking about different technologies. I mean, my motorcycle does not have ABS. Our police motorcycles do. It totally changes the way that you handle certain things and what you're willing to do with a motorcycle that you may not want to do or have ever dreamed of doing on your personal bike.
Yeah.
I forget what these acronyms are.
I know. I was just looking at that, and I'd have to Google it.
All the gear all the time. So Q is an advocate of wearing the appropriate gear, even when it's uncomfortable. And that's very accurate. I mean, I grew up wearing a T-shirt and jeans. That was my motorcycle gear. Yeah, I wore gloves to protect my fingers in a crash, but that was it. And then, as I got older and more responsible and made better choices, I bought all the technical gear. I wore leather even when it was warm and yucky, but because I liked the saying, better the cowhide than your hide.
Yeah, and one of the things that the average person doesn't get to see is the aftermath of the crash. One of the things being in traffic services is, unfortunately, we get to see what most people don't want to. And motorcycling is dangerous. There's no question about it. It has to be undertaken safely, and there's equipment to protect the rider. It's available, it's used around the world. When you look at the different safety gear, helmet is the only thing that's mandatory. But once you get the experience and you can see, even on the racetrack, what devastation the motorcycle may have undergone, but the rider stands up and walks away because they're wearing the proper safety gear. That's absolutely important.
And on the track, a lot has to do with the fact that there's no car coming the other direction to run you over after you had a collision. When you're sliding through traffic as a motorcyclist, on a track, it's a very different scenario. So that's why doing things that are high risk are best done on a track, a closed circuit where you don't have that 18-wheeler to meet you right after, because that's a recipe for bad things. I like Q's statement of dress for the slide, not the ride.
Yep.
There's some great slogans here. Someone should make a T-shirt. But in terms of my collision, I had someone pull out of a parking lot. I should say the driveway of a gas station, a parking lot nonetheless, and that vehicle pulled out from a row of traffic. They were lower and were invisible to me, and they pulled out because I was also invisible to them. And the unfortunate part is we met in the middle, and I went for a short flight. You sort of have to plan for the worst. And how do you do that? You have to drive cautiously, and you still can't prepare for everything.
Yeah. Sylvia's just made a comment there about potential crashes in racing where people still do get injured. And, again, in this case, she says her cousin is back at it and doing well. But even on the racetrack, the risk is there, especially at speed. In the city, on the roadways, we need to minimize that risk. There's a lot more in the way between cars, curbs, poles, things that just aren't in that racetrack environment. So obviously you got to steer clear of them, control your speed, and watch your surroundings.
Yeah, speed is a big thing, and it is one of the primaries. But very often we'll hear motorcycle operators say, "Well, I can stop on a dime because my bike has got huge brakes. It's really light. I can stop." This is something that most people don't consider, is that the person behind you can't stop on a dime and may decide to hit you, not even decide to, but may end up hitting you. And you have successfully avoided the collision in front of you, but the person behind you then we have a different collision on our hands. And that's something that we don't think about, but you should think about. And that it's all part of this being safe all the time and going slow.
Although it's true, the bike has the technology to stop on the dime under the right conditions. When we're talking about intersections, we're talking about cars dripping oil, sand and gravel on the road, things that aren't supposed to be there when the engineers design the braking system on that bike to work at its, maximum performance. That's not going to happen on the street. That's not where that bike was designed to stop on the dime.
So we've talked about a bunch of stuff, but let's talk about have you got a top 10 of tips that you'd want to share? This is Ron's top tips.
Yeah, keep your eyes open. One of the things we say at the course is keep your head on a swivel. You have to look around you all the time. Again, going back to the earlier question about space in front of you when you're stopping at a light, you have to give yourself enough room to get out. It doesn't need to be a full car length. You'll know what your abilities are and how your bike's going to handle. Give yourself room to get out. There was another question about somebody tailgating. There's no real way to make the car behind you stop tailgating. You can slow yourself down, just vary your speed up and down a little bit. That may just make them angry. If that person's tailgating, just move over, let them get around you. Again, you're not going to stop them with your bike. We don't want any road rage incidents. You don't want to brake check anybody. Brake checking, if somebody were to slam on the brakes to cause you to slam on the brakes, that constitutes stunt driving. So just take yourself out of that equation. Let that person get around you. Again, initially, you may just want to slow down just enough that they can see your brake lights. And if they don't open that gap up a little more, just let them go around you. So, but in terms of that top 10, just look around you, be aware who's there. That's got to be the number one.
I think 100% that head on a swivel, be aware of your surroundings. Great advice. Watch your speed. Training is huge. I like parking lot training. Even before I was a police rider, going out into a parking lot that's nice and clean, even if you have to sweep it yourself, and go through, just relearn and master the movements of your bike. Every bike is different. Hopping on somebody else's motorcycle, it's not going to be treated or allow you to ride it the same way. So knowing your machine and maintenance, keeping your vehicle in good condition. Now you have a lot of experience with that. You might have used a wrench or two in the past.
Once or twice.
But the deal is that, it's not just change the fluids and go. You need to make sure that the machine is safe, checking your tires, making sure you have brakes that are functioning.
Brakes, chain adjustment, fork seals. There's just so much involved. If you're not doing the maintenance yourself, if you're not trained properly how to do it, at least have it annually inspected. Your regular tune-ups, your regular oil changes, all the shops are going to give the bike a once-over. And don't neglect the important things. Chains ripping off on the highways. It's amazing how much damage that chain can do, but how much is saved by a little plastic chain guard. People will like to take the chain guard off because they think it looks cool, but then that chain, when it breaks, becomes a whip. And I've seen engine cases destroyed from that. And there was, I saw one person whose calf unfortunately took the brunt of that chain. And after surgery, he ended up okay, but a little plastic chain guard would have saved the injury.
I am all about the shaft drive motorcycles. I don't need chains in my life. I don't need that kind of headache. But something that's completely Q is not about shaft drive motorcycles. Apparently, she's all about chain drive. But my experience has been, things that I don't need to worry about that are less maintenance are better for me. Most of the motorcycles I've owned have been shaft drive. In any case, one thing I want to talk about is although not necessarily a safety side of it, but you mentioned people taking things off, changing their signal array or their rear fender, removing it entirely, and with that comes the original mounts for signals, and they suddenly put aftermarket signals that are itty bitty and hard to see, and they're not really effective. And then even worse, they start replacing their mount for their license plate, and suddenly they're tucked up behind the rear fender where it's supposed to be visible and it's not visible. I mean, there's some indicators as to when someone does that, what kind of rider they might be. There's unfortunately there's an indication that person might be trying to hide their license plate when it's facing the tire instead of the back of the vehicle. Well, yeah. But we see it a lot, and then there's other folks who think that you can just twist that throttle and run away.
So when you look at the aftermarket accessories, that is a huge part of the motorcycling industry. There's nothing wrong with making certain modifications to your bike to personalize it or to dress it up, but the safety has to be there. When you change those turn signals, they need to be the right turn signals. If it suddenly starts flashing at twice the speed, it's the wrong turn signal. If you can't see it in the daytime, it's the wrong turn signal. There are products out there. Obviously, sometimes the right one costs a little more money, but you're better off doing it right and staying safe. As for the license plate, the only reason to hide a license plate is to hide something else. There's no reason to hide a license plate for anything other than committing some other sort of offense that you don't want to be caught for. So obviously this just leads down a path. Again, when we talk about the behavior of the rider, and the license plate on its own, moving that is an offense. It's going to be an expensive ticket. So better off just leaving it where it is.
It's a ticket that's an unfortunate ticket because it's something that is totally preventable, but it's actually getting you more attention than just leaving it where it is.
Yeah.
Even if you're not a rider who's looking to evade detection, it's going to make people think you are, and then there's more attention placed on you. Now, additionally, sorry, I read something that it threw me. There are other things that people can do to keep their machines safe. But I was going to go into a whole thing about e-bikes. Maybe we'd do this on another day because we've gone a little over time today, and we can talk forever. But let's leave it for another time. All right. Anything to say before we wrap it all up?
For me?
For you, I got lots to say. I got a list of things to talk about.
No, I appreciate you having me on today. Hopefully, some of the people watching can take something away. Big thing is go get some advanced training, learn what your bike is capable of, and just continue riding safely. We've all been riding for, at least around here, we've got lots of people been riding for many years, and we love the sport. We love the ability to ride, but you've got to be safe and look after yourself on the road, because some of the people, there was a comment earlier about that person turning left, looking straight at them and still making the turn. They just don't understand. So look after yourself and keep yourself safe.
Just because you touched on it, the fact is people are looking at, they're looking for cars. It's sometimes, I want to make sure that my mic doesn't go bananas. Sometimes when I get email, it makes weird things happen. The deal is that they're looking for cars, and a motorcycle can be invisible to them. Even though it's right in front of their eyes, it just doesn't cue into what they're ready to accept as a vehicle. They're just not looking for it. So we're constantly reminding people that motorcycles are out there. They're vulnerable road users. You don't have to like them, but they're there, and you got to pay attention to them. Jeremy just jumping and saying yes to a segment on e-bikes and stand-up scooters, and that it was an informative session. Thank you very much, Jeremy, for joining us today and participating. Always appreciate the back and forth. Our live chat makes it very interesting for us as well. Thanks so much. If you are watching on YouTube or Facebook or or even on Twitter, I'm going to still give you all the information on how to get it. So if you're on YouTube, please follow us where you are. If you're on Traffic Services, please make sure you're following us there too. But Traffic Services on Twitter. If you're on Instagram, although we don't go live there, you can follow us on Traffic Services Toronto on Instagram. We're big on our YouTube presence, and we're looking forward to getting more of you on there. So if you're watching on YouTube, please follow us. If you don't follow us, please find us there and follow us. Of course, we do a morning show Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., and that is on TikTok. We do a 1-hour Q&A. We had 722 people in our live session there on Monday. It was wild. I think it was a new record. So we have a lot of fun, and we love the opportunity to talk to folks who are interested in safety and traffic and policing. So if you tune in to see us again, we'll take it up where we left off. But definitely we'll have to get our game on for a e-bike discussion. Okay. So with that, I'll shout out. Oh, and of course, TPS Motor Squad has a TikTok and a Twitter and an Instagram. So if you're interested in watching or keeping up to date on motorcycle stuff, you can grab them there. Do a googly goo search, and we will find them on that platform. I'll shut down the chat, but Canadians 5 was just throwing in a thing. He was talking. He was making a tint comment. We get a lot of tint questions on our other channel. So it's been a blast. Thanks so much again, and we will talk to everybody soon. Back tomorrow with Sergeant Kraft. He's scheduled to come visit us tomorrow. We're going to be talking about some interesting craft-related topics.
All right. Thanks again, Sean.
Have a great day. Take care.